Alright people, going live on the website today, we are back in New Mexico, more specifically Valencia County, and more specifically still, we are in the Rancho Rio Grande subdivision, one of my favorite subs to buy land in. And why, pray tell people, why is it one of my favorite subs? Well, first off, location guys. This one is located just outside Los Lunas in Berlin, just west of the I-25, and occupies all the land you see here. Point being, you are not out in the middle of nowhere, but rather conveniently located close to town, and more to the point within an easy commute of Albuquerque, give or take a 30-minute drive. That's number one. Number two, Rancho Rio Grande is one of the rare subdivisions we find in New Mexico where the developers didn't get greedy. They didn't chop everything up into a million quarter or half-acre lots, but rather kept all their parcels generously portioned at 5 acres each. Point being, to this day, most of the land you find in this region are these nicely portioned ranchettes. And because of that, because of the fact the developers kept the lot sizes, things people could actually use and live on, it brings me to the third reason this is one of my favorite subs to buy land in, and that is because people actually use and live on the land. Yes, guys, true story. And if you venture into this region, you will not find a vast, uninhabited desert of nothing, but rather a number of developed home sites. Some look like this, some look like this, and some look like this, but what they all have in common is that they exist in an area with well-maintained roads, residential power lines, underground utilities, all the things you would need, or certainly prefer, when developing land. And all the things, it should be noted, that we usually don't find in these master-platted rural land subdivisions. County governments maintaining roads, utility companies expanding their footprint, so on and so forth. Additionally, guys, it should be noted that despite being in a developing region, there is still a lot of wide open space, a lot of privacy, and a lot of really nice views out here. So if you believe you will like this region as much as I do, let's go to the map together. Here we go. So, as noted, the subdivision covers all the land you see here. Now, what was not mentioned is that it extends from the tippy top of Valencia County up here, down into Socorro County down here. Product of the county lines being redrawn in the early 80s. Point being, it's large. It's large, and it consists entirely of 5-acre parcels. And if we zoom in on the map here, we will see that a lot of that development branches off the entrance to the sub here off of Camino de Llano. You've got a small airport here, used mostly for private planes and a skydiving school, and then you've got a number of developed home sites surrounding it on the east, north, and south. And as we can see, that development is concentrated primarily in this region, and the farther north, south, and west we go, the fewer homes we will find. Now, that said, it is worth noting that despite that fact, the roads throughout the sub are all in pretty good condition. Power lines tend to be found on most of the major roads, and even underground utilities have a presence out here, irrespective of whether or not a house has been built close by. Now, today's property is located just a few miles south of the airport in this developed region we see right here. It's situated along Harrison Road, which, like all the roads out here, is well maintained and easy to navigate, and it consists of a largely level terrain, easy to park, camp, and build on. Now, where this property distinguishes itself from a lot of what we will call the like-type listings in this region is that, number one, it has survey markers already in place. Those markers range in what we will call style and sophistication, from metal poles to boundary pins to rebar stakes to the very precise and no doubt scientific old discarded tire. It's not a vacant piece of land in New Mexico unless it has an old discarded tire. I joke, people, I joke, but the tire is masking the rebar markers we see here underneath it. Whatever the case, my infectious sense of humor aside, all of this is my way of saying that with these markers already in place, it means you will not have to spring for a survey, and thus you will save a lot of money. That's number one. Now, the second way in which this property distinguishes itself is the presence of both residential power lines as well as underground utilities. And to be clear, guys, these are not at the exact lot line, but they are about one lot or 400 feet north along the unnamed road you see here. Now, just to talk about this neighboring property for a second. So this appears to be a 5-acre parcel that the owner subdivided into 4 1.25-acre lots, 2 of which that owner chose to develop and fence, 2 of which remain wide open. Now, the development itself at the time that I'm doing this video seems to consist entirely of this little shack with, I'm told, a well inside. Now, the presence of the well, of course, doesn't affect the property that we're selling all that much, though it does speak, I suppose, to the viability of getting a well drilled on the land. That said, given the amount of development in this region, I don't believe that was ever really in question. Whatever the case, we did include some photos of it just to give you guys a sense of the unnamed road, the residential power lines, and the underground telecom boxes that line that road, and whose service can likely be extended easily to the subject property. And one last thing to note about this neighboring lot, guys, as mentioned, the owner of the 4 lots added fencing around the 2 westernmost parcels. So if we go to the drone overlays here, in addition to the boundary markers that we mentioned earlier, we can see that about half of the northern boundary of the land has been further defined for you. Of course, the fence doesn't extend all the way, but it is a nice thing to have and something you'll see in the background of a lot of the images we have of the land in our photo gallery. Additionally, guys, from this vantage point, we can also see all the encroaching development to the north, and we get a good sense of the number of people who have already built on their land. Speaking of building on the land, segue, it's worth noting that Rancho Rio Grande has, let's throw it up on the screen, no HOA, no annual dues, no covenants, and no restrictions. That, of course, does not mean that it is without formal zoning, but it means that a lot of the headaches you might run into elsewhere, you will not find here. Now, if we come back here to the listing page and click on the Zoning and Restrictions tab, you will see the property out here is zoned RR1, and we have very helpfully linked a copy of the RR1 zoning PDF, so you can study further what that designation entails. That said, I'll give you guys the Cliff Notes version here. Number 1. Any kind of single-family residence built up to code would be acceptable, so that may take the form of a traditional construction or the less traditional shipping containers. Mobile and modular homes are acceptable here, and for the most part seem to be what the majority of the subdivision consists of, and even livestock such as horses and cattle are permitted in this region. Now, some additional things to be aware of. Structures built out here have a height restriction of 30 feet, a minimum square footage requirement of 1,000 feet, and to answer the question I know you're all going to ask, RVs may not be used as permanent dwellings, but may be used as temporary dwellings during the construction of a permanent home site. The zoning PDF doesn't get into how long that's allowed for, but most building permits tend to be good for 12 months, so I think it's safe to assume at least half that time. But again, that's if you're building. Call the county if you'd like further clarification on that point. Now, finally, guys, it's worth noting that sometimes the best way to know what's permitted in a given area is to simply take a look at what's already been built there. And this sub is getting so developed that even Google Street View is beginning to cover it, which did not used to be a thing. So now we can take the little guy here, drop him on the map, and see what some of the developed home sites look like. And that gives you a sense of not only what's acceptable from a structural or housing standpoint, but what's also the sort of pride of ownership that you find within the community. In other words, the zoning may say you can't park 50 junk cars on your land, but is there any evidence that's being enforced? This is a nice quick way to find out. All right, 3 final things to note here, guys. Thing number 1, living out here will put you within a quick drive of both Berlin and Los Lunas. Now, this is my way of saying that you are within 5 minutes of groceries, supplies, schools, churches, medical, so on and the like. Additionally, if you're one of the people we encounter who plans to keep their job in Albuquerque while you build a home in a quieter neighboring community like this, you'll be glad to know this region is only about 30 minutes south of the city, and you will have easy access along either the I-25 or the Rio Metro, which of course extends as far north as Santa Fe. In addition, as we always like to point out with properties in this region, you are only about 2 hours north of the largest body of water in the state, namely Elephant Butte Lake. That's thing number 1. Thing number 2, as noted earlier, the entire Rancho Rio Grande subdivision was subdivided into 5-acre parcels. Valencia County, however, will allow you to chop that up further into a max of 4 1¼ acre lots. And that's why, if you study the map out here, you'll see home sites sitting on large lots that look like this, and then you'll find other clusters of smaller lots with developed home sites on them that look like this. Those are 5-acre lots that have been subdivided further and then resold. Point being, these are good investment properties to begin with due to the natural growth within this region, but subdividing and reselling for more is another good strategy and one I see more and more people taking advantage of, particularly in this region. Finally, guys, thing number 3, back in 2017 when we first started selling land online, we used to list properties out here for, and I can't believe I'm saying this, $2,500. 5 acres for $2,500. And since that time, I have watched this area expand, more land get developed, and prices steadily increase. Last time we had land in this subdivision was a few years ago. We sold a 5-acre for $6,000. That's the highest we've ever been. Now, if we go to Zillow and type in Valencia County, New Mexico, zoom in on the Rancho Rio Grande region, and filter our search criteria for lots and land currently for sale, we will see what land is listing for in this area now. Here's 5 acres for $20,000. Here's another one for $20,000. Here's one over here for $25,000. And here's a 1 acre for $39,000, just to give you a sense of what's possible if you subdivide in the right location. And I show you guys this not only because I am so surprised by how much real estate out here has appreciated during the time that I've been doing this, but to evidence the fact that despite the price on this one, we are still the lowest on the market, and by a lot. So if you would like to purchase this property, we have one of two ways in which you can do it. For cash buyers, those who can pay the entire purchase price all at once, simply come up here, click the Buy Now button, and you will be taken to this screen, which details the purchasing process for you, whether you elect to pay our company directly or if you prefer to close and fund the deal through title and escrow. Either way, the whole thing begins with a $500 deposit, and then we get you documentation within 24 hours. If you elect to pay us directly, that documentation will include a copy of a new deed, which, once approved by you, we will sign, notarize, and mail off to the county. The county will record it, and congratulations, the property will officially be yours. And yes, guys, it's really that easy. If, however, you do not trust paying this much money over the internet to people you've never met, we completely understand. Fortunately for you, we have the title escrow option, and the way that one works is that you place the $500 down, we get you a sale purchase agreement, you sign it, we sign it, submit it to the title company, and they do the rest. And when we say do the rest, guys, that includes, but is not limited to, giving us a new deed to sign and requesting funds from you. Funds, which, by the way, will be released to us only once the property has been deeded into your name and recorded with the county. If, however, you do not have the entire purchase price of the land right now today, that brings us to the second way in which you can purchase this property, and that is on terms, aka an affordable down payment, followed by subsequent monthly payments. And if we click the Buy Now button on this option, we will learn what the terms are on this specific property with the down payment, monthly payment, term, and the same as cash period described here. And the way this one works is that once you make the down payment, we get you documentation, again, within 24 hours, for you to review and approve. And as always, guys, between now and the time that you pay the property off, you'll have a land contract with our company demonstrating your equitable interest in the property. That land contract, it should be noted, includes only prepayment incentives, no prepayment penalties, and can be paid off at any time during the life of the agreement. In addition, guys, we have very helpfully linked that contract here. This way you'll be able to review it in advance and know exactly what you'll be asked to sign before placing even $1.